What's up, guys? It's the trucking guy coming at you again, man. I've been wanting to make this video for a while. I think it's a very important video. I think that it's something that everybody should know. So let's jump right into it, okay? Knowing your numbers, okay? I talk to so many people on a daily basis about knowing your numbers, about knowing, your average rate per mile, knowing the rate per mile on every load, knowing, if you're doing a fleet situation, knowing your average rate per truck that you have, that you're profiting, knowing how much revenue those trucks do each week, knowing numbers like who's your weakest link and who's your strongest link, knowing things like what areas they're running that are dictating these rates, knowing at what season that they're doing well. So you can measure a year, you can say, okay, and we've been in it a long time, so we're able to measure years, okay, and we can say, because we've been doing these for a long time, August every year we did okay. This season every year we did okay. This season with the pandemic, did it fluctuate or change anything? Did it offset things? If you're just a single owner operator, knowing your fuel costs, knowing your revenue weekly, monthly, your average revenue per week, average revenue per month, average revenue per load. You know what I mean? And you're able to determine things like your cost per mile, cost to run your truck. The average rate per mile. What do most of your loads per mile? What are most of your loads? That it was able to determine, because the average rate per mile is dictated based on, you might have a $1.40 a mile and $2 a mile, right? Well, the average is going to be in the median. It's going to take the 4 or 5 loads you did in a week, or 3 loads, or whatever, and determine a number based on your average, right? So, and your revenues change. What changed here? How many days did I work? Did I work 3 days this week, 4 days this week? You're able to just measure so many, the spectrum of numbers, you're able to measure it, right? If you don't have anything to measure, you don't know shit. And you can't measure what you don't manage, right? So let me just kind of show you guys. I got my little book right here, right? This is profit and loss statements, right? You're able to see it. I mean, this is a long time, man, of these, right? This is just one book. So let's go over some of the numbers that you need to know, right? I could go over each one here, each truck. Some of these guys think that when I tell them that, they're like, yeah, bullshit. Does he really manage it? Yes, I do. On every truck, every mile, everything, we know everything, right? And I've been doing this for a long time. That's how I've been able to be successful, guys. If you're not doing this, again, I just can't reiterate that enough. You cannot measure what you don't manage. And if you're not managing your business, how do you know you're even making money? How do you know you're turning over a profit? How do you know you're profitable? Maybe you're just turning money over. Maybe you have 5,000 come in and 5,000 go out, or 5,000 come in and 6,000 go out. If you're not even using a simple app on your phone in 2020 or 2021, it's that simple to have an app on your phone. I paid $300 for fuel. I paid $217 this week for insurance. I paid whatever, and it'll spit out a number right there. That's what I made. And it's, if you're a 1 truck operation, I'm saying, or even maybe a 3 truck, you could do that. QuickBooks, Spending Tracker is a free app on your phone. Spending Tracker is one that you could use to do that. I mean, obviously, my wife does spreadsheets and uses, different methods. But from a fleet perspective, this is what I'm going to talk about, the numbers that you should know, right? You should know the truck revenue for an individual truck. You should know the driver pay, okay? You should know what your costs are, whether it be dispatch services, dispatch fees, leasing fees, safety department, whatever things that come out of that individual truck from a fleet standpoint, okay? Settlement costs, tag costs, things that come up, right? Insurance costs, okay? You should know your factoring charge on every penny, okay? On every truck. So, I'm sitting here, I know what this truck made. I know what we settled to this driver, which means what we actually paid to the driver, okay? I know what we paid to dispatch this truck. I know what we paid to factor this truck this week. I know what my total profit was on that truck. I know what the total miles were in that truck, and I have load to load. So I have, Salina, Kansas to Pennsylvania. I have Columbus, Ohio to Solomon, Kansas. Okay, I've got the total miles that he drove. I got the rate per mile on every load, as well as the average rate per mile. Okay, so he's got a rate per mile for this load, a rate per mile for this load. So he's got one that was $3.31 a mile, another one that was $3.43, and his average rate per mile between the 2 loads, that's all he did that week. It wasn't a, well, it was a pretty big week, like $6,000, but was $3.11 for the average rate per mile for that truck for that week. Okay, and I know that on every truck. So anytime my guys call me, if they're discouraged or have a problem, or they say, man, you know, I feel like I'm not making enough money, or obviously they're excited, hey, I'm killing it, and they don't even know, I know. You know what I mean? So I can say, well, remember back last month when we were doing really well? Hey, remember this? Hey, remember this? So I can kind of have something to measure. Other things that you need to know are the truck revenues for all your trucks, and you need to total that out. Okay, so you can say when you're negotiating with your factoring company or negotiating with the bank, or, you know, for loans or whatever, hey, my trucks make, you know, X amount, right? You can sit here and say, okay, my truck did this amount of revenue per week, per month, okay, based on X amount of trucks. So then you can extrapolate data and say, if I have, you know, our average truck profit, say, is per truck, okay, is $327, okay, ballpark, then I'm able to say if I had 30 trucks or 50 trucks or 100 trucks, could I have that same, you know, amount of profit per truck? And then do I get savings if I have 10? Can I save money in this area with, you know, factoring or whatever? As you get bigger, you should be able to get savings, right? Another thing you should know is the total miles, right? So you can know things like, you know, per foot, what you should charge a customer, or by the weight, right? You can say I moved 50,000 pounds of freight this month, or 987,000 feet, or whatever, right? Which, you know, some of those numbers, they're kind of erroneous. They don't, and that means basically they don't matter, but they're still, it's nice to measure. It's nice to know. It's nice to look back on. You know, this is what Bill Lading said. This is how many loads we did. So I can say my total revenue at the end of the year divided by the amount of loads that we did equaled X basically per load, right? Or X basically per mile, okay? So our average rate per mile last year was, okay, and you think Landstar's not doing this? You think that, you know, Swift and Knight and JB Hunt, they're not doing this? How do you think they've been in business 50 years, man? You know, 40 years. This is the only way they've been able to do it. So from a fleet standpoint, another one is total miles. So right on every one of these trucks, we have truck revenue, driver pay, you know, the cost to dispatch the truck, the factoring fees, the total profit per truck, the total miles per truck, the average rate per mile on per load, and then also the average rate per mile per truck for that week, okay? Now, these are weeks broken down here, okay? And weeks turned into months, okay, as you flip through. So it's all, I try to put, you know, as many trucks as I can in one page, and then we have multiple pages, and then you have the weeks turn into months, right? So you're able to see that your average rate per mile last week, 229. You know, you're able to see that your average revenue, X, right? So if you're not measuring things, man, if you don't have this, if you want to run a fleet and you don't know something about stuff like this, you know, then you have no idea. You're not gonna be able to make it, man. You're not gonna be successful. So even if you have one truck, man, one truck, if you're driving that truck, or even if you just, you know, doing something else and you have a driver, if you're not managing on that one truck, how could you ever expect to run 10 or 15 or 20 trucks? These numbers change by pennies that add up to hundreds, that add up to thousands over multiple trucks, whether that's savings or that's cost. If it's costing, it's obviously not good. If it's savings, it is good. So how do you know what areas you need to be saving? How do you know how to negotiate with your factoring company or your dispatch company or your company that you're leased onto with your, say, you know, you're a fleet of 5 trucks, but you're leased to a company like us. How do you know to negotiate? Say, man, I've got 5 trucks with you. I'm paying X. I want to be paying this. We've done a year's worth of business. We did good. You can see that we're reliable. We do what we say we want to do, but I want to pay less in leasing fees. I want to pay, you know, when you go to a fuel car company, when some of the first things they ask you is how many gallons you buy, you know? So the amount that you purchase, obviously a big purchaser is going to get a much different deal than somebody with one truck. But even with one truck, you have to have something to manage, right? So if you go to the bank and they say, you know, what are you doing? You can show bank statements, but the underwriters for loans or different things that you want to do know how to look at those bank statements and decipher things, right? If you have a P&L and you go in there and they say, you know, how much do you guys do revenue? How much do you know, this, that, whatever, you have numbers, solid things that can actually, you can reiterate them right off, you know, and knowing trends. I've been looking at these things, so I look at them at every Friday, right? Sometimes I look at them at Friday and Monday when I come in, just kind of glance over them again and see that what the trends are. So I can kind of see, okay, this guy, I need to watch him. This guy, you know, what's going on with him? You know, his weeklies have dropped revenue-wise or whatever over the last 2 weeks. And it can't be not always, you know, at the detriment of dispatch or somebody else. It could just be maybe he's having family issues. Maybe his truck's not running right. Maybe he wants to be home a lot more. Maybe he's getting lazy. Maybe, you know, whatever, right? So you can also see trends like certain areas. You have your own data that certain areas are paying really well, you know, and some aren't. And some pay at this time of year about the same. Some don't fluctuate much in their percentages that they do fluctuate. So you know what areas or regions to go into at certain times of year if you wanted to really dive into it that much. You know, I don't get crazy at it like that, but I do at least know what my trucks are doing, how they're tracking, what we're doing, and how, you know, because I know if I have X amount of trucks and I make this much money at the end of the week, right? And I have guys quit or guys stay home, right? Then I know if I want to make this much or more, and my expenses in my business and my personal life, where I take a paycheck from my company, are X. If this number goes below a certain threshold, I know, hey man, I ain't gonna be paying rent next month. These truck payments ain't getting paid, or these, you know, insurance payment, or whatever, something, right? So, you know, and you're able to track these things. You know, you can always measure just about anything off of this. So if you're measuring it, you can manage it, and you can do it in your way. You might have a better way, a different way. Heck, if anybody out there is watching this and they have some information to give me, I would love to have it. I'm always apt to learn. But this is something that I think is, if you're not even doing this, you don't even have a baseline. You can't get better from here if you don't even have this, right? So you got to have something like this. Absolutely have to. I see a lot of guys that have huge followings online, 100,000, 150,000 people. I have yet to see them talk about this one time. You know, they talk about, oh, you know, $3, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know, I got a truck, oh, my truck blew up, I got busted by DOT. They talk about this exciting stuff. And this isn't that exciting, I guess, to a lot of people. And I get it, because it wasn't exciting to me the first time I seen it. But the first few times that I started measuring stuff and I realized, shit, you know, there's a lot that I'm leaving on the table. You know, it costs money to do this, it costs to this, you know. So I was able to tighten up in areas, and those little $25, $50, $100 changes add up, you know. So I guess basically at the end of this video, man, I just want to say, you cannot manage what you don't measure. So that's the Trucking Guy signing off, man. Y'all have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. Follow me, like, subscribe. Message me if you need any questions, any content, you need consulting, you need something, you know, you have questions, you need help with your business, reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer them, man. Y'all have a good day.